The night is long, stretching endlessly across the cold stone corridors of the castle. Darkness presses in, broken only by the faint glow of torches. The fire crackles in a great hall, its warmth a small comfort as shadows dance and flicker on the ancient, unyielding walls. Here every sound echoes, a reminder of the isolation and the strength required to endure these times. Outside, the wind howls, a sound our ancestors knew well, whistling through the battlements and rattling wooden shutters. It carried with it the promise of both danger and change. This was the medieval age, an era of kings, knights, and the mighty fortresses they built to keep danger at bay. Life was harsh, and every stone was laid with purpose. But on the horizon, armies gathered, assembling monstrous shapes of timber and rope, the engines of war. These machines loomed like giants, casting long shadows at dusk. These machines, nightmares for any defender, were the brutal creations of master engineers. Their designs were ingenious, their power unmatched in their time. Before gunpowder, war was slow and personal. Sieges could last months, even years, and victory often came through patience, relentless engineering, and the will to outlast the enemy. The men behind these machines weren't kings or knights, but architects of destruction, masters of mathematics, physics, and the art of war. They worked in the shadows, their genius shaping the fate of kingdoms. Their names are mostly lost, but their legacy is written in the rubble of fallen fortresses, in the scars left on stone and memory alike. Tonight we pull their stories from the shadows, the true masters of the medieval battlefield, whose inventions changed the course of history and whose echoes still haunt the ruins today. Who were these engineers of war? What drove them to dedicate their lives to the art of siege? They came from every corner of the world. Their knowledge passed through guilds and family secrets, each generation adding new tricks and techniques to the old ways. Some were master carpenters and blacksmiths, shaping wood and iron into engines of war. Others were scholars, poring over ancient manuscripts, reviving lost arts of siegecraft for a new age of conflict. A king might have an army, but it was the engineer who gave him the keys to the kingdom. Without their expertise, even the mightiest force could be stopped by stone walls. Take Master James of St. George, castle builder, but also a man who knew how to unmake fortresses. His reputation spread across Europe, and his skills were sought by kings and princes alike. Engineers saw not barriers but puzzles to solve with timber, rope and stone. Every wall was a challenge, every fortress a riddle waiting to be cracked. They travelled from war to war, commanding high prices and leading teams of craftsmen, a mobile factory of destruction, always on the move, always in demand. Under constant threat, they built their machines within range of enemy arrows, each hammer swing a promise of violence to come. Their courage and skill were tested with every siege. The siege engineer orchestrated a symphony of fear, turning human ingenuity to the darkest of purposes. In the shadow of the walls, they shaped the fate of kingdoms, one invention at a time. Of all the machines that thundered across medieval battlefields, none inspired more awe and terror than the trebuchet, a true giant of war, towering above soldiers and siege lines alike. Its immense power came not from twisted ropes, but from a massive counterweight, sometimes weighing several tons. Picture a long wooden arm, pivoted high on a sturdy frame, with a sling dangling from one end and a mountain of weight on the other. Dozens of men strained together, hauling the arm down with ropes and muscle, the tension mounting with every creak of timber, until finally a single pin was pulled and the laws of physics exploded into action. The counterweight crashed down, the arm whipped skyward, and a massive boulder, sometimes weighing over 300 pounds, was hurled in a deadly arc, flying hundreds of feet through the air toward its target. The impact shattered not only stone walls, but also the morale of those inside, each thunderous crash echoing across the battlefield as a chilling reminder that no fortress was truly safe. The trebuchet could fire relentlessly, day after day, pounding the same spot until defences crumbled. Its psychological effect was as devastating as its physical power, wearing down defenders with every launch. But it hurled more than just stones. The trebuchet could launch disease and terror, rotting animal carcasses, beehives, even barrels of filth, turning the castle's own walls into a trap for its defenders. Sometimes it sent the severed heads of fallen enemies soaring over the walls, delivering a gruesome message meant to break the spirit of those inside. The trebuchet was more than just a machine, it was an instrument of total war, a symbol of unstoppable force and medieval ingenuity that changed the face of siege warfare forever. The trebuchet was the sledgehammer, but other machines played vital roles. The mangonel, an ancient catapult, used twisted ropes to fling clusters of stones or pots of Greek fire, clearing battlements and sowing chaos. Its barrages made it deadly for defenders to show themselves, allowing attackers to advance under cover. Then came the ballista, a giant crossbow firing iron-tipped bolts with pinpoint accuracy. The ballista could pick off knights from hundreds of yards, punch through shields, and even target enemy war machines. Its sharp crack and the whistle of its bolts struck terror into the bravest soldiers. These machines brought swift, precise death from afar, shaping the rhythm of every siege. Each was a tool of brutal efficiency, designed to break both body and spirit. Sometimes the goal was to go straight through the walls. Enter the battering ram, a massive iron-capped log swung by teams of men to smash gates or walls. Vulnerable to attack, the ram's crew worked under a protective roof, soaked in hides to resist fire. The defenders fought back with stones, oil and arrows, but engineers made the ram heavier and its shelter stronger. The contest became a direct battle of engineering and brute force at the castle's threshold. When the ram finally broke through, the breach was dramatic. Gates splintered, walls collapsed, and soldiers poured in. The slow siege erupted into chaotic, desperate combat. The battering ram, simple yet relentless, often turned the tide. The siege tower, also called the Belfry, was a mobile fortress, a multi-story behemoth rolled toward the walls. Built from vast timber, it housed soldiers and crossbowmen with a drawbridge at the top to bridge the battlements. Covered in wet hides to resist fire, its advance was the climax of a siege, a slow, terrifying procession under a storm of arrows and stones. Defenders tried everything to stop it: fire, stones, trenches. If the tower reached the wall, the drawbridge slammed down and attackers swarmed onto the battlements. The fight became a desperate melee high above the ground. The siege tower was the medieval equivalent of a landing craft, delivering troops straight into the heart of the enemy's defences. Its arrival often signalled the end of the siege and the fall of the castle. The stories of these machines and their makers blur history and myth. During the Crusades, both sides raced to build bigger, deadlier engines, like Richard the Lionheart's God's Own Sling. At Kenilworth Castle, a legendary duel of engineers stretched a siege for months, each side matching the other's ingenuity. Sometimes a single machine became legend, like the trebuchet at Toulouse, operated by townspeople that killed a Crusader leader with one shot. Behind every great machine was a mind, innovators under extreme pressure, their successes and failures measured in the fate of cities. They diagnosed, rebuilt and adapted, all while armies waited and wars hung in the balance. These engineers were the unsung heroes of siege warfare, their legacy etched in stone and legend. Their genius shaped the outcomes of wars and the course of history. The age of trebuchets and siege towers ended with the roar of gunpowder. Cannons shattered stone walls that had stood for centuries, making old siegecraft obsolete almost overnight. The master carpenter and rope maker gave way to the gunner and powdersmith. Yet the legacy of medieval engineers endures. They pushed the limits of science and ingenuity with the materials they had. They were mathematicians, physicists, and project managers, laying the groundwork for future engineers. Their blueprints, not swords, shaped the world that followed. As the fire burns low, remember the giants of timber and rope and the men who taught stone walls to fear. Their impact on history, forged in fire and splintered stone, will never be erased.